Welcome on in, folks. This is Spruce and Studs, and we have another action figure to review. Although it's not your standard action figure, it is actually something in which an action figure can actually drive and stand in. What are we talking about today? We are going to be reviewing the Primaris Invader ATV, which is actually one of the more highly anticipated vehicle releases of this year for JoyToy, and they finally were able to get it out before the end of the year. So I'm very excited to review this. So without further ado, let's get on to the review. All right, ahead of us we have the highly anticipated Invader ATV, but there's only one thing to do except open it up. So let's go ahead and do exactly that. Slice it open, rip it open, unveiling the vehicle. Wow, this thing is really sizable. So as usual, let's take a look at the Onslaught Gatling cannon and see exactly what's behind this. Wow, it looks like there is some text over here that I really want to read. Let me get my text reading voice. The warrior who acts out of honor cannot fail. His duty is honor itself, even his death, if it is honorable, is a reward and can be no failure, for it has come through duty. Seek honor as you act, therefore, and you will know no fear. Let there be a founding of the Adeptus Astartes, and let the foes of the Emperor know that his galaxy belongs to him now and forever. Very interesting text over here. I'm surprised that they were able to screen something so small on this thing, but it is very impressive looking. Looking at the Onslaught Gatling cannon, it's nice to actually see some highlights up here, which really accent the armor panels of this really well. And as you look at the Gatling cannon itself, just like any other bolters that you see out there that JoyToy does, it's got that very weathered patina. So you've got this dark gunmetal look, and then it's dry brushed with this light silver dry brushing. I'll have to admit though, the dry brushing is a tad bit messy in these areas, and I wish that it could be a little bit more clean. So if you look at the rest of the parts, you've got, again, a ton of highlighting going on over here, a lot of weathering, more highlighting and weathering. Very cool looking Onslaught Gatling cannon that I'm fairly impressed with. So the antenna over here, there's really nothing too special. Again, it mimics just like any other Space Marine bolt gun. As you can see, highlighting over here, highlighting up here, and then highlighting on the studs, I suppose, and then more of this weathered kind of look as you're seeing over here. All right, so let's take a look at the meat and potatoes of this whole entire thing, which is the Invader ATV itself. We're gonna take a look at the twin auto bolt rifle that's up in front and see how this fares in terms of painting wise. So painting wise, it does have, again, your highlights up here, up top. And these highlights further accentuate this and makes this stand out from the rest of the vehicle itself. Although I would have to say that the painting is a bit rough over here in this area, where you've got like this splotchy light silver up here. However, it's not as bad on this side. And then if you look at this front area, it is highly detailed too. I really wish JoyToy would translate all these highlights into their 2.0 figures. So this is very welcome to see these highlights up here and along all these other panels. Without these highlights being on these armor panels, this definitely would look very dull in my opinion. And then if we're taking a look at the front lights of it, people over there got a little bit too overzealous with the painting up here, so there's a little bit of white bleed onto the red, and then you get this more weathered kind of look down here with the silver. The wheels, just like the bikes, have plenty of detail on them, and as you can see, obviously this is not a pristine conditioned wheel. That's one thing I want to make you aware. All of JoyToy's mechas as well as their vehicles are well worn and used, so they're going to put some weathering here. So it's actually really nice to see that there is weathering from mud, dirt, or sand on these wheels. And you get to see it on all four wheels, to be honest. So more weathering over here, as well as back here. as well as over here. So it's nice that these wheels are very uniform looking and shows that it's been highly used and weathered. Let's look at the operating system, I suppose, in the steering column over here. So this is actually a marked improvement from the bike. I would have to say that the bike's painting was all over the place, but this is actually really nice. The green is supposed to be where the green is, and the red is supposed to be where the red is, which is really, really nice to see. And the driver actually has a bunch of stuff that he is able to control down here. And it looks like there's a bunch of switches and buttons as well on this left-hand side. And there's a bunch of buttons over here on the right-hand side too. So from just first glance, the painting looks pretty good because the black is where the black is supposed to be. And the yellow and red are perfectly painted on top, which is really nice to see as well. And as we look into the midsection of this, I really like this weathering that's going on over here. And JoyToy does a very good job of weathering their vehicles. And in the back, you have your gunner. And the gunner is obviously going to be using the Onslaught Gatling cannon. And it looks like there is a bunch of dials and switches here, which is nice. And then back here, there might have been a few random areas in which the paint got a little bit out of hand. But regardless, this is really sweet looking. Now let's take a look at the bottom of this, starting off with the back. One thing I really like, just by a cursory glance of this thing, is actually the paint job down here with the exhaust. I love how the exhaust has this burnt tips over here, and it's cleaner in the back. And this obviously mimics real life, where the exhaust would definitely stain this area, well, where the exhaust would come out. So this is very nice to see that there's a lot of realism behind it. And then I'm not exactly too sure what's going on here, if this area was supposed to be a blue or a black. But again, it doesn't really matter, mainly because this is at the bottom of the ATV itself. So not a big deal. So right now, let's take a look and see what kind of movement that we can get from this ATV. So as I said before, the Gatling cannon itself is completely fixed. However, the handles, you can actually move 360 degrees, as you can see over here. And the same goes with this handle. You can actually move this 360 degrees. And you can hear there's a little bit of resistance, but it's not really that big of a deal. So as you can see, you can tilt this up and down, which is a really nice thing to have. So moving on, let's take a look at the auto bolt rifles. It looks like the auto bolt rifles are able to move up and down, as you can see over here. There is a fairly limited range of motion, maybe like 20-30 degrees. And the same thing goes for this one as well. Both of them can be moved up and down to a certain point. And then there's this little ram bar, I suppose, over here that you can actually move up and down as well. All right, let's just take a look at the wheels. The wheels have actually a decent range of movement over here. You can actually push this in, you can see like that. And then you can also pivot this 90 degrees out like that for both of the wheels. So there's a good range of movement in the front, which is really nice. The handlebars back here is completely fixed. It doesn't really do anything. You cannot steer with these things. It's static. And then all four wheels you are able to move. So you can spin these. And then turning it around, you can spin these as well. The rear wheels remain completely fixed. There is no up and down motion. There's no left and right motion that you can do with these things. So that's pretty much the amount of motion that you can get for this ATV. So right now, the only thing to do is basically outfit the ATV with the Onslaught Gatling cannon, install the antenna, and then put the Space Marines so this can actually blast the Emperor's enemies. So attaching the antenna is very easy. All you have to do is attach it back here. It's done. And then the Onslaught Gatling cannon attaches here. Very easy to do. Voila, you're done. So a few months ago, I bought these two Space Marines in anticipation to man this lovely, lovely vehicle. So I will now man this ATV. Only thing that you need to do is slip the Space Marine in the cockpit. And I'm sure that there's going to be some finagling that needs to be done to make him fit. There we go. And then have him grasp the other side of the handlebar. So I would have to say that the Space Marine looks pretty good in here. However, I will have to say also that this backpack is definitely blocking the Space Marine from sitting properly, I suppose, all the way back. So I will see if I can wiggle the backpack off to see if this will actually help. Here you go. The Space Marine is actually sitting quite properly in the seat without the backpack blocking the way. And the Onslaught Gatling cannon can actually sit at a flat angle over here. So let's put the gunner in the back of the ATV. And it's very simple. It just goes on like this. All right. There is a lot of finagling that needs to be done with this thing to make it fit. But we can make it fit. All right, so there you go, folks. The Invader ATV is completely manned, and this is exactly what it looks like from the side. Taking a look at the fitment of the Space Marine in the back, I would have to say it fits fairly nicely. He actually is able to come into contact with the bottom of the ATV, which is good. So it actually shows that the proportions are actually correct with this vehicle. All right, there you go. The ATV is completely assembled and reviewed. So let me wrap this up with my final thoughts. All right, folks, we have a doozy of a vehicle on our hands over here. And my overall impression of this Invader ATV is that it's really cool. Seeing all these vehicles in the Warhammer 40K universe come to life in this size and in this scale. And I have to say that the size and the accuracy on this thing is very, very true to form for JoyToy. I think they got it right and hit it out of the ballpark, in my opinion, with this one. Again, there are not many other companies out there that have actually had the expertise to be building mecha such as this or vehicles. And JoyToy's expertise definitely does come out in the manufacture of this ATV over here. I really like the Onslaught Gatling cannon. I really like how there is a lot of articulation. You can rotate the Gatling cannon 360 degrees. You can pivot the thing up and down, as well as the auto bolt rifles over here, which is, again, very, very true to form. So again, there are small painting issues, but it's not as bad as the bike, in my opinion. These painting issues are very minor and can be very, very well overlooked because of this awesome looking vehicle. And finally, I suppose one thing that would have been nice is that if the steering of the ATV could have been connected to the wheels, but obviously that probably would have cost a lot more money to have that kind of articulation or movement to be put in place. So would I recommend you actually go out and buy this ATV? Yes, I do. Again, no other company does these kind of vehicles as well as JoyToy, and it definitely does show with this ATV. So if you are a fan of vehicles, if you are a fan of Space Marines, this is definitely something that you would want to buy. The only downside of it is that it doesn't come with anybody to actually man it. So you're going to have to pony up another $60. So that's basically $30 per Space Marine to actually fill the empty spaces for the cockpit as well as the gunner in the back. So that's the only downside of it, because all in all, you're going to be spending roughly around $140 to $150 to actually get this thing fully manned, which again, in my opinion, is definitely worth the amount of money. So anyways, this is Screws and Studs. I hope you enjoyed this review. There is going to be a lot of new reviews that are be coming out in the next few weeks. JoyToy has been spitting out new release after new release. It's really hard to keep up with. So look for those. And again, thank you for your continued viewership and your support. It is very much appreciated. I'm only here because, well, you are watching my videos. And as usual, thank you, and I'll see you all in the next one.